Hello everyone, today we're gonna talk about a Chimera version of Amber. Well, it's not her in a costume from Chimera, but it is an old friend of hers. We're talking about here someone who is in great debt thanks to Amber's help that made them become friends. And now she is training to be a forest ranger. That is Collei, the little sprout of Rebirth. So let's talk about her info. Collei is a playable Dendro character in Genshin Impact. She has appeared in the official manga and serves as one of its main characters. Originally, a laser-afflicted victim of the Fatui human experimentation, Collei wandered the world as a vagrant until she met Amber in Mondstadt. Since then, Collei has turned her life around and currently serves as a trainee forest ranger in the Avidia Forest. Collei is a 4-star female character. She uses a bow as a weapon and her vision element is Dendro. Collei's birthday is May 8th and her constellation is Lepteris Verilis. She lives in the region of Sumeru. Collei is affiliated with the sub-area of Gandardierville and the Forest Rangers. Her special dish is yearning, which is a variant of the food called pita pocket. Collei became playable in the game on August 24th, 2022. The 4 voice actors of this forest ranger in training in the 4 localizations in Genshin Impact are Christina Costello in English, Qin Wenjing in Chinese, Ryoko Makawa in Japanese, and Bang Soo in Korean. Collei goes by 2 titles which are Sprout of Rebirth and Avidia Forest Ranger Trainee. Collei uses the medium female model. She has short, wavy light green hair that reaches her shoulders and purple, almost magenta eyes. The outfit she wears is called a new leaf. Collei's hair is styled with a large hairpin, resembling a flower with a black ribbon. She wears an earring with a large gem on her left ear. Her outfit consists of a green shawl with gold tassels, worn over a brown dress that exposes her upper back. Has detached sleeves and includes a small black ribbon on the back and several gold trinkets. She also wears a pair of dark gloves that cover over only her palms and leaves her fingers exposed. Around her waist is a belt with her Ganzo vision, which has 2 large, long orange ribbons attached. Hanging from the belt on the left side, she also spots long golden and brown open-toe stockings, a golden ornament on her left thigh, black-heeled boots with a fur trim that leaves her toes exposed, and a long yellow scarf with gold details. The outfit is described as, now that she no longer needs to remain balded in a thick cloak, she is free to emerge like a newly sprouted leaf and welcomed everyone lovely sunshine. The description of her outfit relates to her backstory seen in the manga. Collei's hair in the manga was chin length. When she first appeared, much of her body and face was covered in bandages. She wore baggy trousers, one that resembles a cerule, and a taper hat made from bandages, tied around her hips. It's a green-orange cloth. Later, Amber she loaned one of her outfits to Collei to attend the Ludi Harpassum. Collei also wore a badge satchel in which she stored the collected Fatui devices. In Chapter 16, she appeared with a pale black shirt and a simple pair of shorts under a hoodie cloak. She also wore an Ushanka had a pair of gloves and boots that reached up to below her knees. Lastly, she uses the same green-orange cloth and beige satchel from earlier. When Collei first arrives in Mondstadt, she is extremely wary and suspicious of people because of her past experiences, preferring to be left alone and making her seem cold. Her pessimistic view of the world comes from her mistreatment and abuse she endured everywhere. She also had a rather low opinion of herself, pushing people away because she is unclean and say she is unworthy of their time. She was initially annoyed by Amber because of her cheerful and optimistic personality, but Amber shows her kindness by offering to help her something she lost, even insisting that they are friends, and protecting her from Kaya's intimidation multiple times. The two continue to grow closer during the course of the manga, and Collei begins to trust Amber, becoming less wary of people as her view of the world becomes brighter. When Amber protected Collei from Barnabas, Collei was touched by Amber's resolve and realizes that she, too, wishes to be able to protect others. After having her powers sealed by Sino, she decides to leave with him to Shimeru in hopes of learning more about the world. By the time she meets the traveler, Collei is shown to have matured with her training under Tighnari and is now considerably more positive. She expresses great admiration for Amber, whose compassion deeply moved Collei to the degree that it influenced her behaviors and hobbies. Inspired by Amber's benevolence, Collei tries to be very helpful and protective in her fullest range of duties, and strives to be as friendly as possible to everyone, although she still has struggles with her literacy in Elazar. She attempts to discard her past pessimism in favor of pushing forward and doing the best she can regardless. She's also developed a deep sense of empathy, extending even to the gods, whom she used to deem forsaken by. She now wonders if they too can feel just as helpless. She states that looking back, her extended hatred towards the world outside the Fatui was childish. She also experiences guilt over her time in Mondstadt and is interested in apologizing. Despite her improvement outlook, it is clear that Collei has yet to fully put her trauma behind her. Whereas no longer being bitter about it, Collei still finds it very difficult to open up to others about her past and avoids the subject when possible, as it brings back painful memories. Her introverted nature also leads her to occasionally spend time alone in the tree hollow, where she writes about any trouble or frustration she may feel. Collei is somewhat of a bad liar, only being able to convince Amber on why she wanted to know about the Fatui research. She is also prone to panic attacks and breakdowns, and especially hates being pushed or shoved around. Even just trying to touch her might cause her extreme fear and discomfort, as shown when Paimon tried to playfully touch her the day they met for the first time in Shimeru. This shock apparently triggered a flare-up of her disease, causing her to be bedridden the next day. Supplicant's bowmanship is her normal attack. The normal attack performs up to 4 constructed shots with a bow, while the charge attack performs a more precise aim shot with increased damage. While aiming, Denjo energy will accumulate on the arrow. A fully charged arrow will deal Denjo damage, and the plunging attack fires off a shower of arrows in mid-air before falling and striking the ground, dealing AoE damage upon impact. Floral Brush is her elemental skill. It draws out a floral ring that deals 1 in 10 of Denjo damage to targets it comes into contact with. The floral ring will return after a set of time, dealing Denjo damage once again. Trump card Kitty is her elemental burst. Trusty Cuilein-Anbar comes to save the day, draws the doll named Cuilein-Anbar, causing it an explosion that deals AoE Denjo damage. creating a Cuilein-Anbar zone. Cuilein-Anbar will bounce around within the zone, dealing AoE danger damage. Floral Sidewater is her first Ascension passive skill. If one of your party members has triggered Burning, Quicken, Aggressive, Spread, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgen reactions before the Floral Wing has returned, it will grant the character the spout effect upon return, which will courteously deal danger damage equivalent to 40% of Collei's ATK to nearby opponents for 3 seconds. If another Sprout effect is triggered during the initial duration, the duration effect will be removed. Damage dealt by Sprout is considered elemental skill damage. The Languin Wood is her 4th Ascension passive skill. When a character within the Cuilein-Anbar zone triggers Burning, Quicken, Aggressive, Spread, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgen reactions, the zone's duration will be increased by 1 second. A single trump card kitty can be extended up to 3 seconds. Gliding Champion of Shimeru is her utility passive skill. Decreases gliding stamina consumption for your own party members by 20%, not stackable with passive talents that provide the exact same effects. Collei was born sickly, so her worried parents brought her to a shear and begged him to save her. He explained the illness as being touched by the Dave, supernatural creatures with negative properties, and claimed that they had to give their daughter to him in order to save her. However, he was working with the Fatui Harbinger Second Ditore, and instead of saving her, turned Collei into a test subject for their Archon residue experiments. Whenever the Fatui had let Collei go or if she had escaped herself is unknown, but she eventually found herself wandering alone. One account of her sickness, she was treated poorly whenever she went. She was often abused by passing pedestrians, had stones thrown at and pushed around. This fueled her hatred for people and gods, and a strong desire for vengeance. The disease Collei is afflicted with is called Eleazar. Unique to Shimeru, this is a disorder that causes dark and hardened scales to form on the body. First symptoms are mild numbness on the affected areas of the skin, but as the disease progresses, symptoms are general fatigue and peripheral paresthesia, abdominal sensation on the skin, on the limbs. May occur. The final stage of this disease causes complete paralysis of the affected person, rendering them completely immobile. These symptoms hint that Eleazar might be a neurological disease. The condition is what causes Collei to be perceived as clumsy by others, as it affects her ability to hold or carry objects, often dropping them to the ground. According to Trainee, there is no cure for Eleazar, only a prevention care may be provided to stop the disease from advancing to a more serious stage. In the days Collei spent with the Fatui, Diote was able to keep the disease controlled by unknown methods. Upon the removal of Greater Lord Rakadevada's consciousness from Arminsul, Collei and other Eleazar patients have recovered. Helpful, bright and sunny, friendly and passionate. Just ask around Grand of Haraville and you'll hear this trainee forest ranger's praise to the skies in such terms. As long as her body allows, no matter how busy school gets, Collei will never slack off when it comes to her forest patrol work, and is always willing to lend a warm helping hand to whoever is in trouble, regardless of what walk of life they come from. Nevertheless, even enthusiastic and positive as she is, there seems to be a past and things on her mind that she is not ready to reveal to others. If in the woods where she often patrols, you should chance upon a tree hollow full of strange noises, or hear someone whispering nearby, no matter what you witnessed or overheard, please kindly take a detour and consider it a silly prank. One played by an Internar, perhaps. After all, there are some things that only a tree hollow can know, for now anyway. If words are the vehicles of wisdom, being literate is undoubtedly the starting point of the purpose of knowledge. Collei, however, seems to have only barely reached the foot of the mountain of knowledge. When she first arrived in Grandville, even the outspoken Trainee showed obvious hesitation, making repeated inquiries with the general Matanadra if she had walked through the wrong door, since she had yet to make any plans to teach preschool-level courses. Still, after several twists and turns, Collei had finally become a trainee. To facilitate her learning of words, Trainee gathered a wide astonishment of books and documents in the hope that Collei would soon master enough words, though extensive reading. Apart from the literacy encyclopedias for children and the mandatory reading academic papers that made her head swell, Collei can most often be found reading fairy tale pictures books from Mondstadt. The logic is simple. Those books tend to have fewer words and more pictures. Even if you do know the words, chances that you can still guess their meaning by looking at the illustrations. However, reading only children's books hardly sufficed to keep up with her curriculum. Once she had picked up slightly more words, she intimately started to look for new extracurricular reading materials. According to some travelers who had passed through Avada Forest, there are a type of book in Inazuma known as the light novel, which was easier to read than academic papers, and with fewer illustrations than picture books to Collei, that sounded like the exact type of book she needed. More importantly, the plots of these light novels were often so incredibly reverting that as soon as they got a copy, many readers just had to finish reading it in one go, even if they had to stay up till all night. That definitely sounded tempting to Collei, since she had to force herself, more often than not, to stay awake long enough to finish her readings. One day after her forest patrol, Collei excitedly ran back to her dormitory with the newest volume of Onabudu. She was so ready to pull an all-nighter reading the light novel, and as it turned out, she intended to stay awake the night. My sealed power, the lonesome adventure, you'll be wise to stay away from me. I shall never witness the grace of the gods. Converting her head with the quill, Collei tossed and turned upon her mattress. The entire night, even as dawn broke, she had not yet torn her mind away from these words. There is a saying in Tibet that has obscure origins and is often used by people who are feeling extremely ashamed or embarrassed. I just wanted a tree to open up and swallow me. Collei was pacing in the woods while muddling the sentence, which she had learned from a book. Before she returned to Shimaru, she had promised a dear friend that she would become the excellent doctor with exceptional medical skills so to save people like her who were in constant agony both physically and mentally. However, it takes only a passing passion to make a wish, and yet it requires years of painstaking training to realize it. In the examination that had just concluded, Collei had hit the barrier between reality and expectations at once. More. How am I supposed to tell Amber about this? Plus, she would have to ask her master to write the letter for her. Things like doing poorly on the test and wanting to have someone to talk to were not things she could easily speak out in front of her master either. It just so happened that a tree, hollow roughly the size of a person, appeared along her patrol route, as if some god had overheard her mumbling. Wait. Talking to the Naranar about problems, I've read about it in books, but they were children's books. I'm sure I've overgrown that. But now that there's no one around... Before she knew it, she was already crouching in said hollow. The darkness turned into a solid fortress, isolating Collei from all kinds of pressure. Collei, being an introvert by nature, found it difficult to present herself incompatibly. No matter how hard she strove to be as outgoing and sunny as Amber, she could never manage to ignore her weariness and loneliness. Thus did Collei vent her distress to that hollow, empty herself of all the negativity she had accumulated after getting back to Shimeru. Did Collei go on patrol in that area again? A few days later, Tanari checked in on Collei's recent forest patrol routes, which had been taking all too frequently. Before looking at her test papers, which featured remarkably high scores, he could not help but think to himself, did she find a way to improve her grades in the forest? Well, that's not bad either way. Alright, I'll save that patrol route for her and leave her be for the time being. I'll have other rangers take the other routes. Should written test be left out? Collei actually does well on her exams, especially when it comes to surviving in the wilderness. The jungles of Sumeru suffer no shortage of poisonous creatures and dangerous beasts. Well, unexpected emergencies lurk around every corner. Therefore, a competent forest ranger must be a thoroughly prepared one. And Collei really excels in this regard. She may not be as literate as her peers, which hinders her performance in all the writing tests, yet she is nothing if not practical and creative. Wrapping thorny vines around her boots to increase traction, rubbing the toxic sap of poisonous mushrooms onto hunting traps to promote efficacy. Such ideas have ensured that she can travel in and out of the jungle safely, successfully attracting those unfortunate enough to become lost in the woods, accidentally ingest poison, or get hurt by a running beast. Those who have been rescued by Collei are one and all amazed by her unique but reliable survival skills, not to mention how they are all moved by her genuine kindness and enthusiasm. But it's surrounded by grave dangers or lacking food and supplies. Even if the rescued traveler turns hysterical, she embraces every circumstance with the warmth of the sun. She cares little for scars, and hunger concerns her not. She just wants to offer help to whoever is in need. The only thing about her that is considered unacceptable by many is the recipe she utilizes during times of crisis. As long as they can replenish her energy, she will even gladly swallow fireflies without hesitation. The crushed pits of Zaytun peaches are even less of an obstacle. When people met her, they simply cannot help but wonder about this young trainee's past. What sort of experiences could make such an seemingly innocent girl see the wilderness as her home? Before returning to Shimeru, Collei had wandered for a long time. The decisive difference between wandering and traveling, of course, lies in that the former bears no designed destination. Her wandering started from those charred ruins, or perhaps earlier, when she was affected with that disease, and it was long destined to be a never-ending nightmare extending into nothing but total darkness. Most of the companions with whom she had fell from the ruins either lost their way in the endless waves of sandstorms, or culled to death by the divine remains. Sick and cursed, they had nowhere to stay, thus turning to uninhabited jungles and wilderness. When nature is both merciful and cruel, she would never reject them because of their illness, nor would she offer whatever they need, even if they cry out for it. As more and more of her companions could walk no further, the lessons they left behind helped the rest become better at surviving in the most desperate situations, and when Collei's last companion could no longer continue, she learned yet another lesson, never to reach out to anyone again. At that time, the two of them had their backs against the cliff, utterly exhausted, yet they could still hear the beast roaring from not too far off. Perhaps it was because of the narrow passage, if not for the other reasons, but her only remaining companion bumped it into her, sending her clinging off the cliff. Fortunately, Collei managed to grab a tiny twig in her panic before stretching out for another hand and shouting for help. However, the companion merely glanced at her with a complicated look before escaping alone without hesitation. She did not get far, the beast's howls outpassing her fearing steps like a raging wind. The beast's pure predatory instinct caused it to overlook the shivering Collei, who was barely hanging onto the cliff. Collei quietly withdrew her hand and held down tightly to the branch that might break at any moment until all the sound above her had died down. The roar of the beast and the screams of the companion had all disappeared. She could not hate the companion if she were in the person's shoes. She could not guarantee that she would have made a different choice. At that moment, there was only one thought remaining in Collei's mind, but it often helped or asked for it. I will never reach out to anyone again. Collei once again touched someone's hand during a certain year's Ludi Harpassum in Mondstadt. The city was elaborately decorated with lights and lanterns. The streets were jam-packed with people. The sky was getting darker, and a stage was in full swing. A girl in flaming red just grabbed her hand, took her out of the cramped wooden box, and squeezed her into the crowd. People gathered around cheering and applauding the contestants who were playing hoops or with slingshots. Collei could not relate to them, no matter how well they could play these most childish games. What use were they in hunting games out in the wild? Yet, the girl was extremely passionate about these little games. She would cheer and hoop at every victory and hand out the prizes she won to the children. Collei was even more baffled. If not for the rewards anyone participate in these activities, what was really fun in them? So she sneaked out to the corner and picked it up a slingshot to try her hand at it. And in the end, one of the more than 10 shots she fired hit the edge of the target. Yeah, I hit it. Collei turned her head in excitement. Hey, did you see? It was only then that she realized that she had been there for quite a long time and the girl in red had already left. In the days that followed, Collei had been practicing day in, day out. Gradually, she became more than familiar with the sounds of a drawing bowstring and drawing darts. She practiced it for a long time until she would seldom miss a shot out of 10. Every time she pulled the bowstring back, Collei remembered the excitement of hitting the target for the first time on that night. And that's when the girl grabbed her hand and ran towards the crowd. Her palm was as warm as the sun. To grow up is the best one's mature past self. Collei often helps the children in Gandavarville mend toys, and her forest ranger colleagues also occasionally ask her to help patch their clothes when they get torn up on benches. That said, Collei was by no means born a seamstress. As a matter of fact, her first attempt at sewing was nothing short of a disaster. It was when Collei was about to leave Mondstadt. Right before she left, she handed a piece of repaired old dog clothes to Lisa, hoping that she could return it to its owner, Amber, on her behalf. The piece was indeed repaired, but also covered in stitches so twisted that one could potentially mistake them for earthworms. And in all likelihood, it was no longer possible for its owner to even wear it out again. She was afraid that Lisa would laugh at her or criticize her. To her surprise, Lisa was just gently took Collei's hand hidden and they had been behind her back and carefully bandaged her injuries. She was often slightly surprised by all the injuries deep or swallow on Collei's fingertips. She just casually commented, "Why, it almost looks as if someone's been bouncing wolf hooks across their fans all night, as if they were balls." "Don't be this impatient with your studies and your merry little Collei," Lisa said. "There are always the first time for everyone, and learning to overcome the difficulties you encounter during the first time is where the meaning of growing up lies." Collei instantly brushed her. She could not learn how to accept the kindness of the others back then, but she was just a child, and children grow up. The desperate child would grow up and discover hope once again. A child who could not use the slingshot at all gradually learned how to aim. The child who was once constantly injured by the needle has also slowly grown up to be an indigenous role model to the eyes of other children. In Gandaville, children gather around Collei, chittering with envy and excitement. "You're so skillful, what a pretty cat. Collei, does it have a name?" Collei, for once, felt so proud of herself. She had up to the exquisite cat doll, all the stitches, and perfect needlework. "This is Cuilein-Anbar." The rain was pouring. A surge of rock, earth, and debris had blocked Collei's way. Collei lit a bonfire by the cliff, trying to warm the shivering girl next to her. The river valley would require a full day's journey from the woodlands that were the domain of her usual patrols. If she were here all by herself, it would not be entirely impossible to get back in this rain. But now that she had a child with her, racked by the cold and hunger after being lost in the woods for a long time, she had to wait. The girl looked pale, for her forehead boiled, and she kept muttering her mother's name. Collei still remembered the girl's mother, who had been anxiously and desperately seeking help in Gandaville. She recalled the look on her face, the look of one who wished that she was in suffering instead of her daughter. Collei knew that look. The family had been traveling with a caravan to cross the river valley. As they were camping and resting, her playful daughter had ran off, staying into deep forest. As soon as the caravan noticed that the child was missing, they tried their best searching for her, but it was all in vain. In desperation, the mother had to return to Grenharville to look for help. Recently, Trainee had been attending meetings in the city with other forest rangers. The situation before her was critical. Collei could not wait for any of them to return, nor could she rely on the search and rescue dogs during such heavy rain. So immediately she grabbed her pack, bow and arrows, before diving into the forest alone. At that moment, the occasional low growl against the sound of thunder and rain told her that there was beast approaching. Collei could not help but recall some disturbing experiences from her past. Old memories came flooding back, the memories she least wanted to face. But the rain would pass, and after receiving the news, Trainee rushed over without taking any breaks. Traces of fighting could be found all the way along the cliff. Several beasts lay fallen in the distance, while Collei and the girl slept peacefully on each other's shoulder. Trainee's heart seized up in his chest. He was well aware that Collei was not capable of doing all this, unless she had wielded that power that should not be unleashed. It was like drinking poison to quench thirst, and it would surely activate Collei's condition. He must contact the General Machinara right away. Trainee's footsteps awakened Collei. She hurriedly gestured to ask her master to quiet down so as to not wake the girl next to her. Trainee checked upon her wearily. "Collei, did you?" Collei shook her head. She handed and released the fist that had been clenched all night. "Master, I've become stronger. I won't let anyone's efforts go waste. From now on, I'll protect everyone." It was a vision, slightly glowing in her hand. Collei's name translates to lost in Welsh. Collei's constellation, Leptarius Severus, is a reference to Severals. Leptarius refers to the Severals genus, while Severius is a Latin term meaning of pertaining to or connected with deer, from which the word serval is derived. Cuilein-Anbar's name may be translated as daring amber. Cuilein directly translates to pub and cub, is a Gaelic term of endearment, commonly used for young animals equivalent to daring, while ambar is an Arabic word meaning amber. Fact 1. Collei ate fried radish balls offered by Amber during Ludi Tassim in Chapter 9 of the manga. She ended up liking them a lot, as seen in her favorite food voiceover. Fact 2. Barnabas tells Collei's parents that she's been touched by the Dave. A Div, meaning satanic giant in Persian, is a particular sort of supernatural entity with disagreeable characteristics. Fact 3. There are hints that she is claustrophobic. Fact 4. Due to the Archon's residue feeding on Collei's negative emotions, when she encountered such a negative emotion, the Archon residue lets Collei have a vision of what would happen if she had control over the Archon residue and was filled with hate. Fact 5. In the Japanese version of the manga, Collei's name was previously translated as Kona, though this has since been changed to reflect her current name, Collei. And that's Collei. Now for those who have read and seen the manga, there was a character who is one of the iconic characters of the Chimera arc that took Collei to Chimera from Mondstadt after her story arc in the manga. That was Sino, the General Machinadra, and he's who we'll be talking about next time. So see you then.